Okay, so the bad. Even so, there are a few points to consider before embarking on a diet of grasshoppers, crickets, and ants. So, the possibility of allergens. Although insects have been consumed or eaten as food for generations in some parts of the world, there is still very little known about how they might affect our bodies. It's well known that food allergies are becoming an increasing problem. Eggs, shellfish, nuts, and milk, once considered so benign or harmless, are now common triggers for allergic reactions. One study found that insects have the same capacity to trigger allergic reactions as do crustaceans, right, which are seafood, right, like shrimp and lobster, shellfish. This makes sense when you consider that insects and crustaceans are both classified as arthropods, meaning they have an exo or outer skeleton and segmented bodies. So, if you have a shellfish allergy, you may want to steer clear of cricket flour or roasted grasshoppers. Okay, so bacteria. Let's be honest, there are good reasons why we've been trying to keep bugs away from our food instead of eating them. Many insects feed on decaying matter, rotting food, animal corpses, human waste, which are full of bacteria. This is a common danger associated with wild caught insects. What's more, there is the potential for a small amount of microbial fauna and spore bearing bacteria to find its way into farmed bugs that we use for food. The insects need to be bred in a clean environment. Unfortunately, many insect farms in Asia don't necessarily obey with the high hygienic standards, right, to be clean. It has also been found that insects can carry parasites, which are harmful, even deadly. In the early 1950s, it was found that a large number of people living in Malaysia had been infected by an intestinal fluke or an infestation of harmful bacteria, which they had gotten from consuming or eating dragonflies. It appears that regulating or controlling the conditions in which bugs are raised would offset this problem. But more research is needed before we know for certain how safe it is to introduce insects as a dietary staple. All right, anti nutrients, which anti means the opposite, right? So not nutrients. These are the dark twin of nutrients, substances that interfere with the body's ability to absorb and use protein. They can compromise or negatively affect the nutritional value of many foods, especially those made from plants like rice or flour. Some common anti-nutrients are phytic acid, tannins, and lectins. The exo or outer skeleton or chitin of an insect has been found to have small amounts of these anti-nutrients. But most studies have found that these levels to be relatively low compared with that might be found in plant-based foods. Luckily, it is not all so dark. Although chitin reduces our body's ability to absorb insect protein, there are many health benefits of eating chitin. We still don't know much about the levels of anti-nutrient substances in insects. More research is needed to find out whether they are significant. Pesticides. Very little research has been done on the use of pesticides in the raising of insects. One study found low levels of certain harmful chemicals. These were no greater than what you would find in most animal-based foods. However, we can't ignore the fact that the use of pesticides in producing or making edible insects is largely unregulated or unmonitored. And so using insects as as a food source does carry a small amount of risk. The risk is greater when insects are harvested in the wild as opposed to raised by an insect farmer. In both Thailand and Kuwait, widespread health problems have resulted in cases where dead insects were used for food after there had been attempts to disinfest agricultural areas through the use of pesticides. Toxins. Do you know the difference between a mushroom and a toadstool? In appearance, they are similar, yet one is delicious and healthy food source, while the other is poisonous. It's the same with insects. Some knowledge of insects is necessary in order to know which ones are good for you and which ones might kill you. Bees and certain kinds of ants carry toxins inside of them in order to ward off predators. Those same toxins can be dangerous if you eat them. Some kinds of beetles carry a metabolic steroid, which can result in growth retardation, infertility, or the masculinization of females if it is consumed too frequently. It is important to note that most of the cons on this list present only a very small risk, no greater than the risk encountered in eating meats or grains. And most experts agree that the benefits are significant enough to outweigh them.